And hello, welcome back to the Gay Racing Podcast. Zack and Alex are back with you. Happy Pride Month, as
Happy
always.
Pride
2025, our very first guest episode to celebrate Pride Month. I'm really excited about this. Normally, Alex is like really good finding guests for the show, and you know, you always be reaching out to them and having the ideas. This one, though, this was my idea because, as you guys know, I've been into iRacing, and I found this guy, you know, as I've just been getting more into the iRacing community, I found this guy. He's a professional sim racer in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. Nate Stewart is joining us today on the Gay Racing Podcast. Hello, Nate.
Hello.
We are so excited to have you. You drive for Jim Beaver Esports, the number 5 Ford Mustang in the Coca-Cola iRacing series. Just kind of introduce yourself to anybody who might not even doesn't even follow the series, doesn't even play iRacing. Like, what's such a big deal about kind of what you do?
Yeah, so I don't know.
Or just introduce yourself as Nate as well.
Yeah, well, first off, hi, I'm Nate Stewart. I'm 24 from Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Been a racing fan for all my life. Really started on NASCAR, growing up in the South and all that. Right. That's how it got started, and then slowly translated into I really love sports car racing now.
Ooh.
And then also IndyCar, F1, just whatever. And then I got into iRacing. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. I've always played racing games growing up.
Right.
Started with NASCAR Thunder 2003 on the PS2, and then slowly worked my way up through those. And then I played the Forza Motorsports throughout the 2010s, and then towards the back half of the 2010s and 2018 is when I first got my iRacing account. And then, I just kind of raced off and on. And then, COVID is whenever I really started to get into it. And then now here I am. I'm the driver of the number 5 Misadventure Life Ford Mustang for Jim Beaver Esports in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series.
Yeah, that's so cool. And we'll get into your journey on how to get there. But your background, you just introducing how you got into racing, and it's become very varied getting into sports car racing, because I feel like I was just so locked into NASCAR for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really cool to hear that diversity with just the motorsports, because as I was getting older, I was starting to pay attention to other ones too. So Alex and I are gonna ask you a few questions about kind of how your career got started. I'm excited to ask you some more iRacing specific questions, because I've been on iRacing since April last year, May last year.
Mm-hmm.
Been wasting a lot of money and time on it. So not wasting.
I know that's
I've had fun. I've had so much fun. It's great.
Well,
yeah, Alex,
I would say our first question would be, really, how long did it take you from joining iRacing in 2018 to have a goal of being a professional sim racer, or did you ever have that kind of goal in mind?
Yeah, so it was always kind of in the back of my head, growing up in the 2010s, I knew what iRacing was, but I didn't have internet at my house for a long time and not a computer. So I didn't really have access to that kind of stuff.
Right.
So around the mid 2010s, I knew what iRacing was, and I kind of knew what the then Peak series was. And I knew, and I was a big Dale Jr. fan growing up. So I knew Junior had heavy involvement in iRacing, and then also made starts in the Peak series. So whenever I got into iRacing, I was it'd be cool to make it to that level eventually, but it wasn't really on my mind at that point. And then it was after sometime during COVID, after COVID maybe, is when I started getting better at iRacing, and I was okay, maybe I can do this eventually. And then it was just a lot of trials and tribulations with the Road to Pro ladder and all that from back then. And then I eventually, it really became a goal in 2022 for me to make it to the Coke series. And, it's 4 years later now. Math wasn't ever my strong suit. And, now
me neither.
I'm here.
Well, one of our Patreon members actually asked a question similar to that. This is from Chris. He said, when did you know that you were moving from someone who just does sim racing to being a pro sim racer? And what was the moment where you said, oh, I'm not just playing iRacing anymore. I'm actually a competitor, an esports competitor?
Yeah. So first off, that's a great question from Chris. The first moment I knew there was like some inkling that I could potentially do it was like, I know I hinted at the goal or said that the goal became a thing in 22. In 2021 was the first time they did the 2-round Road to Pro qualifying format where the top 70 there's X amount of races for the first round, and then the top 70 in points out of that round get put into round 2 for X amount of races, which then snake split, and they score the same amount of points per position. Whereas in round 1, it's just normal iRacing splits.
Yes, like everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, which Zach would be familiar with. And then like your strength of field determines how many points you get. So like the winner in top split gets the most amount of points, where like, bottom split last place gets almost 0. So it's just kind of like I don't really know the word for it, but like it's a point spread throughout.
Kind of like a ladder system almost. Because like
kind of,
I know, I'm familiar with like guys, they had to work to get their I rating up so that they would get in those high splits. So it wasn't just like you show up to the race and perform well. It's like a constant, like you need to build your I rating up, then sign up for the race. And then, you still got to perform well to get max points. Like,
exactly.
Really
so like
year-long thing.
Yeah. So the points are based on the strength of field. So like, second split had the second most points and this and that and the other. So it was 2021. I just kind of did it for fun.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people
just kind of see how far you could get.
Yeah, exactly. And then I made it into round 2, and I was like, oh,
that gets you hungry.
Yeah, exactly. It got me hungry, and like I sucked in round 2 that year. I'll be straight up, because one thing I've been told, like towards the end of last year, and then like throughout this year so far from my teammates, is like nothing ever prepares you for racing in the Coke series. And I feel like that's something that can be said for all levels of like pro sim racing and all that. And even then the ladder system that we had in years past, like every time you move up, the competition gets stiffer and stiffer. And nothing can prepare you for that other than racing at those levels. So with that being my first time, and I started in like the low splits in round 1. I think I started in like split 9 or something like that. So like I wasn't really ready to compete at that level in round 2, and like it really showed. But it was at that point I was like, okay, I can actually like maybe do something with this.
You said you were in split 9. How many splits were there?
It wasn't a great amount. I want to say there were like 20 something. It had grown each year with like people just signing up more and more, thinking they have
with
a
the
shot,
service too, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And plus, like a lot of people thinking like, oh, I can be the next William Byron and blah 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 blah. But,
and then for people more like me, can both of you kind of explain what a split is? Because I didn't understand for a while until I actually asked Zach.
I feel like I always gotta explain what splits are to you.
I know, just to give our audience an idea.
It's like basically if 100 people sign up for an event and you can only have 25 cars in a race, then it's gonna make 4 splits of 25 each, and the people with the highest I rating are in the first split, then the next amount of I rating. So it's basically so everyone's like closest enough to everyone else in skill, basically. So if you're in bottom split, it means your I rating's low compared to everyone else that signed up, basically. Right. And I like, Nate, I like what you were talking about, how nothing prepares you for racing in the Coke series. One of my favorite quotes I've heard about iRacing is from Evan Pasogo, who does the commentating for the official broadcast. The cars are virtual, but the racing is real.
Correct.
Because I mean, I'll get into really like high level lobbies sometimes, and I'm like, I'm out of my league here. I'm just going to ride in the back. Like y'all have fun up there, because it does get intense, and these guys are able to be very precise and race really closely and sometimes not wreck. If netcode wants to behave, right? But so I find that really interesting, you kind of discussing that. And we're going to get more into like, your path into the Coke series. Definitely. You kind of described how the process has worked for like a few years. There's a new kind of wrinkle into it with the 2025 season. So you described the Road to Pro series, and that was happening like the year before. Then I believe it was like the top 20 from that went to the Contender series that happened in like the late fall, early winter, all of these steps just to get to the Coke series. So the Contender series,
it's like the equivalent of like the truck and then Xfinity,
right?
Then Cup.
Yeah, and they'll use those cars. Like they use the trucks for the Road to Pro. Then it's so cool. And then they use the Xfinity cars for Contender. One of the coolest things about the iRacing series, the Coca-Cola iRacing series, is that the bottom 20 in points after each season, they kind of have to fight for their spot again to be back in that league next year. So the Contender series is the 20 guys that got knocked out of Coke, and then the 20 guys coming up from Road to Pro, and they fight for the last 20 spots in the Coke series. I thought it was really cool. This year they introduced a new wrinkle to it, to where they let the top 30 in the Contender series kind of fight for the 20 spots left in the Coke series through this free agency process. So Alex, instead of like, if you qualified, instead of you being guaranteed a ride, it was all about kind of like it is in real life, where drivers have to like reach out to teams, or teams reach out to drivers, and there's negotiating, and Nate could probably get into it more. So you will get into it more because you lived through it. How does that work?
Yeah.
Like, is it like, how in depth does it go? Like, how did you get to be with Jim Beaver Esports?
Yeah. So first off, I have to commend you for doing your research. I was kind of worried that I was going to have to explain everything, and I'm not that good at that. So the way it came about was, I finished 27th in Contender points, which isn't necessarily anything to write home about. Mm-hmm. But from what we were told was they changed up the series this last year to kind of like have people that might not have the best Contender seasons still have an opportunity to be able to race into Coke. And there were a handful of us that finished outside of the top 20 that got signed to teams in Coke this year. So the way it came about was like, I finished 27th in points, and in the off season, Brianna from NASCAR came to us and was like, "Hey, we have these. I have an idea for you guys with this free agency period coming up. You guys can make marketing decks to market yourself, and this and that and the other." So I reached out to Steven Merzlack, who is a phenomenal graphical artist, by the way.
Yeah, and
highly recommend checking out their work. And I was like, "Hey, Steven, I need your help with this." And Steven, gracefully took it and absolutely knocked it out of the park. And I'm not really going to get to like the details of it necessarily, but from what I was told, there were not a lot of people that took on the marketing deck thing. It was only a few of us, which, I mean, I don't know. My thing about the marketing decks is I did it because I cared about being in the series.
Right. You're doing
it to sell yourself.
Exactly.
You had to sell yourself to the teams. Yeah. Which is just like real life.
And it was a way for me to prove that I care about being in the series.
Yeah.
And all that. So
you put in a lot of effort.
Yeah, exactly. And then I also had a relationship previously with Jim Beaver Esports. So I don't know if you guys know, Zack might, but like I have a thing for doing screenshots on iRacing. I have for a few years now. So I really got started into it with Blake Reynolds, who's former McLaren Shadow and Jim Beaver Esports driver as well. So back in 2021, I think was my first year of doing screenshots in eNASCAR. I did it for Blake, and then my setup teammate at the time, Blade Witt, I did that. Me and Blake met running FTF for something like that around that time frame, like late 2020. And then he had me do screenshots for him in 2021 and then 2022. And then I want to say 2022 is Blake's last year driving. And then in 2023, one of my team managers, now Chris Leone, who's worked with Jim for a long time, Chris came to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to do the screenshots for us this year in 2023?" And I was like, "I mean, you're paying me to do it, so yeah, why would I not?" But so the relationship was already established with Jim Beaver Esports, and I had no idea they were coming back until they announced that they were coming back. I think it was like December or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but whenever I saw that they were coming back, I was like, "Oh, that's really cool," and this could be an opportunity potentially, since I already had the relationship, and me and Chris are friends. So I was like, this might be a good opportunity. And then
how soon after the announcement did you end up talking with them?
It was as soon as free agency opened. So
okay,
I want to say they announced in like early December, and then like we're not really allowed to talk to teams until free agency opens.
Okay.
So free agency opened, was it January 11th? Maybe somewhere in that range, mid-January, early January. As soon, like literally as soon as free agency opened, 1 hour later, Jim Beaver himself texted me. He's like, "Hey, I want you to drive the car." And I was like, "All right, I'll do it." Hell yeah.
Nice.
And Nate, there was a lot of controversy around like this system because there were a few drivers that finished well in the Contender Series who got left out. Like they did not secure a ride. And, originally I did kind of feel bad for them because racing sometimes has a problem where like in real life we see money trump performance, right? With real race cars and stuff.
Right.
But what you said about the marketing thing, and like you were one of the only few to take on that marketing thing, it
goes a long way, obviously.
It makes me like, it's not a lot. Like you put in the effort and you got rewarded for it when not a lot of people even put in that effort for marketing. Like come on, y'all. Like let's try, right? That's just my opinion. Yeah, it does matter.
Especially that I can think of is Rick Allen, the TV announcer, did not have an agent and he didn't get hired anywhere for this year. Like it reminds me exactly of that. Like you put in the effort. Well, I think it sounds like he just kind of expected he would get something. It's the same kind of thing.
Because like I think someone could argue like, well, okay, but it's iRacing and this is supposed to be a video game. It's all about my performance. But like marketing yourself is like a real life skill that you need to have for anything,
for jobs, for like, literally anything.
So I feel better about that system because at first I'm like, the free agent is it's kind of like a little extra for me. But I mean, I don't know. I wasn't involved in it. So, but but everyone getting the chance to market themselves, but only a few took it. That's really interesting to me. But
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And I think, obviously you benefited from the free agency system, but do you kind of like how it brings a new wrinkle into getting to the series? Like, do you like that?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like, obviously I benefited from it, which I mean, I'm never going to complain about, but like, I definitely think it has its pros and cons, but every system does, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely think I like the free agency system more because on one hand, like you have, for those coming up, like I did last year, is you have like, I'm not necessarily going to say like a lesser boundary. Like, yes, it's 30th you have to get to instead of 20th, which is a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But like getting to 30th or, finishing in the top 30 still is a challenge at that level. So
making it there in the first place. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So for the extra 10 of us to have that opportunity was huge. And then, we had and like I said earlier, there were like a handful of us outside of the top 20 that got picked. I know, like Blake McCandless, to prove an example. He's been, he's driving for Junior Motorsports this year in the number 8. He has that relationship with Dale Jr. and he announces the Cars Tour on Flow. I'm pretty sure he's done stuff for a Speedway. He's done a lot in the real life world and has built connections and stuff. And he's really good on the sim. And then finished 23rd, I think it was, in contender points. So if it was the old system, Blake wouldn't be driving the 8 car. I wouldn't be driving the 5. There would be a handful of us that would have been out of rides, that would have never gotten the shot in the old system, just because we had not so great contender seasons.
Yeah. And they're simplifying this format for next year. Instead of having the Road to Pro things that like for weeks and weeks the year before, they're just consolidating it into just one series next February, which I assume like everyone can kind of like sign up for at first, like kind of like what Road to Pro was. Do you like how it's going to be simpler, like for, I guess, because obviously, depending on how the rest of your season goes, if you have to go back to that series, which we'll get into in a minute, you won't have to like, wait, how does that work then? Actually, so because it's just one series now, so it's going to be the bottom from the Coke points, the bottom 20 from the Coke points. They like, do you just have to sign up?
So
for it,
I guess the question is, would your team owner be able to be
myself.
Like, hey, you come back, like with the free agency, would you still be like eligible to come back, or would you still have to run the new qualifying
I think you still have to qualify, but it's not like you don't get into the contender series, because the contender series is basically open to everybody now, right?
Yes. So we don't know. They haven't really told us much.
That's why.
That's why I'm confused. Everyone's confused.
I'm hoping they release details soon, but for all I know is right now it's still the top 20. So like 21st, 40th, and Coke fall out, like same as in years past. And then as far as I know, the 20 of us that have to fall out, if we want to run in Coke in 2026, we have to run the gauntlet of the single series.
Because you used to would have like an advantage, like the bottom 20 in Coke would get to you just hop into the contender series, you don't have to go through the gauntlet. But now it might be different,
so we don't really know the fine details of it because they haven't announced it, but
because it's for next year.
Right. So as I can say it right now, no, I'm not a fan.
Right.
I would much rather. I'm a little bit biased due to benefiting from the system, but I think the system we had in place last year in 2024 with the 70, 20, and then 30 into a free agency for Coke, I personally think that's the best system in place, because that's the best blend of performance and then also like real world skills of marketing and this and that.
So is the free agency part cut for next year?
Well, that would probably be like,
I don't know.
You don't. Yeah, they might have the top 30 from that series.
We don't know.
Series.
So
and another thing with like the top 30 in contender is for like those of us that fall out of Coke, it provides a bigger net for driver retention, which is another big thing going from like year to year, because one thing that I've seen people complain about is like lack of, driver retention and having people running, or like the same people running from year to year, because it's so at the bottom, it's so like, I don't really want to call it topsy-turvy, but like it's like
a roulette. Like,
yeah, kind of.
Wow.
So the top 30 in contender provides a bigger net for drivers to, earn their place back. And then,
it's like a safety net, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's assume that, what we know right now is what's going to happen with the Coke Series next year. You're currently not in that top 20 in points. What do you need to do with your season to try and get up there? Like what do you need to find like in the track and everything?
So everything is, well, I'm not going to say everything, but a lot of things are about to change. So
right.
every quarter iRacing does a like new build type thing where they update simulation and all that.
Like a seasonal update, basically, like other games have. Like Splatoon had it, Alex.
Yeah.
So yeah, next Tuesday is the June build for iRacing, and we're getting a lot of refresh tracks like art style, and then also new scan data and this and that and the other. And the car, the next gen car, well, the Gen 7 Cup car, whatever you want to call it, it's also changing. We're getting a new tire model, new aerodynamics, and this and that and the other. It's essentially going to be a complete overhaul of the Cup car.
So it might balance out the playing field.
In theory, it should.
Okay.
I'm hoping for like a complete reset where we have to come up with everything from scratch, because I think that would be best for the series. And what I'm hoping for is we hit on whatever is good in the new build, and then we can, like my team at Dead Zone Racing, and you know, Alex, you might not know this, but we have two different forms of teams. I know I'm kind of getting off topic, but we have the show teams, which is like Jim Beaver Esports, who I drive for, and then also our setup teams on the back end, which is Dead Zone Racing. So my Dead Zone teammates consist of like Dylan Duvall, Zack Novak, Casey Kerwin, Ryan Luza, you know, like former winners and champions and all that. So I really hope we hit on something after the build comes out, and then hopefully can get an advantage over the rest of the field. But so really that's kind of what I need, is to like hit on something and then just start finishing better. So like after last night, I finished 31st in Kansas. Was not looking forward to that race whatsoever. I was awful in testing, to say the least. And then the race was just not great for me. And then, yeah, so I just kind of missed it. And I did the math last night. Right now, I'm 77 points out of the top 20. So it's not an insurmountable task, but it's definitely going to be a huge one to try to get into that top 20 with only 9 races to do it.
And I had a question about the, sorry, Zach, I had a question about the setups. Do all the are there like several of those setup teams, or is it just like, there's like 1 or 2?
Yeah, there's several. You have like a couple big teams, like us at Dead Zone. I think we have 13 of the 40, I think it is. Okay. And then Norse Force Racing is also another big one. They have Steven Wilson, Donovan Strauss, Parker White, Daniel Falkingham, Eddie Kerner.
It's kind of like manufacturers, almost.
In a sense, yes.
In a sense, it feels like manufacturers.
I was thinking like the different engines in like ECR and stuff like that. And NASCAR.
That's what it feels like to me.
To look at it. Yeah. But like, there's a couple like super teams, if we want to call it that, with like Dead Zone and Norse Force. And then there's Nexus Esports that has a handful of drivers. And then like Legacy and Ryko. I think that actually might be it. I don't really know.
I didn't like really consider that part, because I almost like assumed just all the like the show teams just worked on their own setups, but I didn't know it like went even deeper than that. So that's is that really cool, Alex? Because it's
that's so cool. That's
Again, the cars are virtual, but the racing is real, and everything that goes into it is real.
And Zach, that goes into my next question. By doing this professional sim racing, you get all these setups and everything. Do you think your skill could actually translate to drive in real life? We've seen other drivers do that kind of switch. Do you think you could hop in a Gen 7 Cup car and do decent?
I think it would depend on the track type. So
that's fair.
I've always ever since I started iRacing, I've always leaned when it comes to NASCAR, obviously, doing whatever NASCAR does, but I've always kind of had an M part, if we want to call it that, towards road racing. So I think I could hop into a Gen 7 car at a road course and maybe do well. But I've also never driven anything in real life.
Right.
So I don't know for sure. And I'm going to out my buddy teammate Vicente right here. You've seen Vicente Salas do some real life stuff. He ran Gateway. Mm-hmm. He ran Gateway in the trucks last year. And then Xfinity at Rockingham this year. Mm-hmm. he self-spun in both races, having a car or truck on his outside. And like, I would kind of give him crap whenever he got on Discord next. And I was like, you're like 2 for 2 on self spins, man. What's that about? And he's like, man, all these guys on this game would not survive on a real track with no experience just because of the difference in aero. That's the biggest thing. So like, iRacing does a good job for the most part, but they don't really model that like pocket of air between cars that are side by side, and that loss of side force, downforce, and that's like what caused Vicente to self spin in those races.
Yeah, like with iRacing, it's really weird because I feel like to me it's like a building block way of like adding aero things. Like I don't know if this was true, but they probably added side draft like one time. Like, okay, we'll add side draft now. Oh, there's dirty air in the corners. Now we'll add dirty air like 10 years ago, whatever. And like the GT3 cars are weird because like there's like barely any draft on them. And it's like, this isn't realistic. Like, it's like there's like weird things like that. In the Xfinity cars, I never feel the dirty air in the Xfinity cars, even though like obviously I should. So there's like weird things with that with their aero modeling, which, to be expected, I guess, because it's probably very hard. But
it definitely is really hard to emulate or simulate real life like that. Because, I mean, you can't get more real than real.
I definitely think, though, like, iRacing can teach racecraft in a way. Like, you could probably, like, someone like you or anyone else in the Coke series, I feel like they could hop in, like, a street stock or a late model in real life or something, and like they wouldn't be completely out to lunch in terms of what they need to look for or what they need to do when they're on the track racing somebody. But your senses are different, feeling the cars completely different. I mean, it's just they're two very different things, but they're not like so far away, I think. So that's really interesting. And I want to ask you about the type of racing that's kind of going on in the Coke series and like with the next gen car. And of course you alluded to like it's about to get updated and changed, hopefully for the better, because something that frustrates me, I've been running like the full season of the NASCAR iRacing series, which is like open to like everybody on the service for people that don't know. And I just like feel like so many tracks, the cars are just so packed together, and a restart late in the race is like, all right, well, it's just going to be a wreck fest from here on out. I watch Coke races sometimes, and sometimes you guys, your races kind of devolve into that, like just restarts and wrecks, but it's also kind of what we see in real life. Like, how do you feel about that type of racing and that style of racing, and what do you hope will change with the new update to the car next gen?
Well, with the newer update, I alluded to it earlier, but like I want like a complete reset of the car. I want to be able to like work with my teammates and build something from the ground up, and then hopefully get a leg up on the competition. I predict that the draft is going to be turned down and the dirty air is going to be turned up.
Right.
I don't really know what we're going to have in terms of the tire and all that, but like it's definitely going to be different. I've heard some positive things about it, but I can't really be too sure what it's going to do until we get to the build. Mm-hmm. Then as for the racing, like the racing isn't inherently bad because, you've seen like Steven Wilson and Tucker Manor going at it the past few races.
Oh yeah.
And then also in the mid pack, like the dirty air is there and the side draft is there and this and that, but we don't get separated like they do.
That's the thing. You guys still stay packed up. Like in real life, the field gets spread out a little bit.
I was going to say, I watched the Kansas race. That was my first Coke race I've ever watched. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that like the battles up front were pretty good. But when you look at the back of the pack, it was just kind of like single file and not really spread out or anything.
Yeah. My favorite type of oval racing is like the Xfinity car and like the old ARCA car, where it's about tire saving. And if you're fast, you go forward. Like you're like, they're not stuck behind you. I'm just kind of over this whole drafting racing because it's just too many wrecks. It feels like you're not in control. You're in destiny. So I hope we still see the next gen car. It's very separated in real life because of dirty air, of course, but still, like, I'd rather have something like that than kind of what we have now, to be honest. Just
yeah, I can agree.
And also,
So,
it's a simulation. Like, let's make it more realistic. Might as well, right?
Yeah, I hope to see it get more realistic after the update because I would like more separation. Like, I made this comment to like one of my teammates the other day. Like, I would rather be running 40th because it's impossible to pass due to dirty air, and we're all separated, as opposed to running 40th because I'm, stuck behind 3 rows of 5 wide at Kansas, which was the case on the GWC last night. So, like, just hoping for like more realism out of the car after the update. And then also another thing that we've been begging for is just longer races.
Right. So, because before it used to be like half the length of the cup races. Like Kansas last night would have been 134 laps, but it was 100
and it
laps
was 100.
Instead. That's a trend that started in the series like a few years ago. Like, they started shortening the races, I guess, make I don't know if it was to help the racing and or the broadcast. You could probably speak on that more, Nate. Do you like these shorter races, or are you one of the ones that wish they were longer?
I definitely wish they were longer. Like, I definitely feel like a Coke race should not be shorter than NIS.
Yeah, it's ridiculous
at all. Like, the only exception could maybe be Charlotte. Is like, a Charlotte half distance race would be 200 laps. Like, I'd be fine running 150, 160. Like, this year we had 2 longer races. Like, Charlotte was 160 and then Rockingham was 200. So Rockingham was still like in theory, 1-stop race because we could go like 102, 103 laps on gas. So 1-stop was a viable option. But at Rockingham, like, the tire wear was so bad that the 2-stop was faster at Rockingham.
Oh, it was like Richmond.
Yeah.
Like in real life.
And then at Charlotte, Charlotte was 160 laps. Unfortunately, my power was out that race, so I had to go book it to a friend's house and run on his rig, which was not an enjoyable experience.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, I'm bummed because I really had a lot of speed that week and didn't get to show it, but that's besides the point. But the longer races definitely help with, like, strategy and all that. I mean, even then, our longer races can still delve into, crapshoot territory because, Ryan Luza, one of my back-end teammates, turned another one of my back-end teammates on accident, Casey Kerwin, with like, I don't know, 5 to go, I think it was.
Right.
We had a couple
it's like real life where a late caution just ruins everything.
Yeah, late caution can just throw everything.
I was bummed about that caution watching that Kansas race.
Oh, it's like real life. It's a simulation, Alex. It's literally.
I was like, I think I literally texted you like, no, not overtime.
Well, that's
it's like,
the thing,
it's
though,
Sunday.
That's also just NASCAR in real life, and they're simulating it. Like, literally, though. Like, it's like, what do you expect from them? But, like, kind of like what we complain when we talk about the real races. We want the stages to either be gone or longer because, more tire wear, the drivers get to be, showing their skill more. Strategy, the crew chiefs get to show their skill more. I can definitely see how a longer race is more beneficial to the drivers in terms of just enjoyment, showing your skill. Probably more fun to watch too, because it is less chaos just by nature. So that's really interesting to see the similarities between real life and, this Coke series.
Yeah.
I did have a question. I know you have shorter races now, but in the Coke series, you have a spotter. I know that part. But do you have like crew chiefs or anything, or is there just like a strategy that you come up with?
So it kind of depends on how many people you have in your on your team. Like I said earlier, Dead Zone is kind of like a bigger team, and all 13 drivers have at least a spotter for the most part. So right now I have just a spotter because we don't have enough people for me to also have like a crew chief / strategist, if we want to call it that. Whereas like coming up the Road to Pro last year, since, I was like one of the only ones doing it, I had my friend G. Allen Lewis, who spots me in Coke now. He also spotted me in Road to Pro. And then also I had Cody Bias, one of my Coke teammates, on on my box and Road Pro, crew chiefing, making adjustments and all that. And like, I don't know adjustments for anything. So if it ever comes down to that, I have to like text our main setup builder, Houston. And I'm like, hey, man, what do? I need to be tighter, need to be looser.
Yeah.
I need adjustments.
Like under yellow or like during the race?
Like during a pit stop. Yeah.
Under caution, I will text him on Messenger and be like, hey, what do I do?
Yeah,
so, it's crazy.
I started learning about that recently and my head's still spinning. I'm like, girl, what?
Yeah.
Because the next gen car is different than the Xfinity car, apparently. Like what you have to do with the springs.
Yeah. And then like going into the season, I didn't have a lot of experience in the next gen car compared to like my peers in the series. And that's been one of the biggest detriments as to why I've been like, running towards the back is I just don't have the laps that my like teammates and competitors do. Right. So coming up, I always had like a crew chief / driver coach. So like in Road to Pro, I had Cody Bias on who's been in Coke for years now. And he was able to like, help me figure out what to do as a driver. And then in Contender, I had Houston Hamer, who's our, main setup builder, crew chiefing me. And it's like a little bit of a driver coach, but towards the end, I think for the last 3 races, I also brought on Dylan Duvall, who drives a 199 for Channel 199 Sim Racing in Coke. I brought him on as a driver coach, and he really helped me out a lot those last few races. And then now that there's so many of us driving in Coke, I don't have that driver coach anymore. I just have G as my spotter, which isn't a bad thing by any means, because I'm still thankful to have someone as a spotter. But I also feel like I'm missing a little bit and not necessarily achieving my full potential because I don't have that driver coach in my ear.
Right. Okay.
Not to rag on G or anything. He's an amazing spotter. He just doesn't have the like experience to be a coach.
Yeah. And we had a few of our Patreon members ask a few more miscellaneous questions about iRacing. Patreon member Blake asks, what is your best advice to someone who's like new to iRacing and they want to get better?
Yeah. So when
I guess in regards to Oval, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So like the biggest tip I received, and I actually got the same question at eNASCAR Media Day in Charlotte back in January. Cool. What I said was just like laps.
Yeah.
It's practice. Because I mean, you're not going to figure it out if you don't. You're not going to figure it out if you don't do it and figure it out.
Like stop thinking about it and just go like do it. Like I've been in
repetition,
different competitive games like since I was like 15, I guess. And like one thing I've learned is just shut up and go play the game. Like just go play the game. You're not going to learn anything by sitting here on Reddit and like reading comments and like
how do I get better?
How do I get better? Like just go do it. Like
and like don't get me wrong, there's still tips that you can receive and all that, but you're never gonna truly like figure it out if you don't apply it and do it yourself. Like I personally, I'm not like a coach or anything, but like I'm always open to trying to help out those that are like, hey, I have a question or this and that and the other. But like, I have one of my teammates, Zack, like does coaching. Zack Novak does. Not trying to necessarily plug him, but if he gets something from this interview and me saying that, like, he better give me a cut of something. Right. But
use code GRP.
There are people out there that have made like, videos in the past.
Yeah.
I know DJ EJ has been a big one.
I learned a lot from him because
Arca and this and all that. So there's information out there, but you're never gonna do it if you don't do it is the best way I can describe it.
So Zack and I play Splatoon. Zack religiously plays Splatoon.
Zack and I'm about to say Zack plays Splatoon. You hate the game. I don't know what you're talking about.
No. But I got it. I got 2 because we wanted to play together. And I'm like, how do I get good at this game? And you sent me like this video I'd like give a bunch of tips, and I tried it, and I'm like, I don't understand. But you're right, Nate. Like it's just repetition.
Shut up and told you to play the game.
Yeah, exactly. And once I actually started just playing the game to play it, I got better. And I would assume that's the same kind of thing with iRacing.
Yeah.
And then when you have an idea, a grasp of it, then you can like look at all those tips.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I had to get to a point where what really helped me is watching streamers. But again, I had to get to a point before I could understand what they were actually doing. Like I was like, when I was paying attention to their throttle trace, like I learned a lot before I came to that point, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alex, you can read the next question.
Yeah. Next question's from Patreon member Steve. Hi, Steve. Do you have a favorite paint scheme that you have run, Nate?
Is that Steve Luvender?
It is Steve Luvender.
Yep.
Okay. First off, I absolutely love Steve and trading paints as a whole. A favorite scheme, that's kind of a hard question to answer because I've had so many good ones.
Yeah, I like your sim wrap market cars. Like I feel like you ran on I feel like you've run them on like every car at some point.
Yeah, like first off, sim wrap market has been a partner of mine for a couple of years now. It started with 1023 Graphics, who was an independent artist at the time. He sponsored me the 2023 Firecracker 400 and then decided to go back into working for SimRap Market. So he brought me along. And then, Cameron, the owner, was like, oh, yeah, I would love to sponsor you. And so he sponsored me last year throughout Road to Pro and Contender. And then is also on my quarter panel this year in Coke. So the SimRap Market cars have definitely been my favorites, or some of my favorites. Like, when I was, so to backtrack a little bit, in 2023, I was running for Dead Zone Racing and Road to Pro, but I had my first show team experience with Rise Esports because I was doing their screenshots that year. And then, so I got to drive a Sunoco truck done up by JD Laird. That was really good. So that's like definitely on top of the list. And both of my misadventure cars so far have been up there on the list as well, but I think like my favorite has to be my 67th SimRap Market car from Contender last year, the pink, purple, and white one that I ran. It was a nod to and you can feel free to like put it up on screen and post or whatever.
See how quick I can do it.
But I think that one right there.
Sick.
Oh, that's pretty.
That one
so pretty.
is. I'm going to say by far my favorite.
That's really cute.
It's a nod to Ryan Truex's Toyota cars that he's ran.
For our audio people, it's a pink, white, and purple 67 car. Really pretty.
Yeah, a lot of gradients on there. I love a good gradient.
I do too.
Yeah.
So I gave that to Justin, who's 1022 Graphics and has done all my SimRap Market cars. I was like, hey, I gave him the Ryan Truex car and then the car that Bubba ran at the Bristol Night Race last year, both of which were done by Kyle Williams, I'm fairly certain. I know the Bubba car at least was. Shout out to Kyle Williams. He owns the decal source and all that. Fantastic graphic designer. So shout out to him for coming up with those. But I sent those to my designer, 1023 Graphics. I was like, hey, don't copy it, but make your own spin on it. And that's what he came up with. Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
I was like, do your own thing with it, but I want white, pink, and purple. And he was like, all right, I can do that.
Love it.
Say no more.
Exactly.
One more iRacing question from me. I'm curious to know, what are your favorite cars to just drive or race on the service, oval or otherwise? I think I know some of them, but I'm just curious to hear your answer. You can have multiple answers.
I've enjoyed driving the next gen car and racing in Coke for the most part.
I'm about to say what?
There's definitely some frustrating things.
I majority race that car these days just to like get better at it, but I'm like, girl, I hate this.
Yeah, so the Xfinity car is very setup dependent. Like, it can be fun. I had a lot of fun in Contender, and I can't remember if I published the VOD or not, but the contender race at Dover, which is one of
I
my
love
favorite
Dover.
tracks.
Dover. I love Dover. I think that's my favorite oval. It's so fun.
I absolutely love concrete tracks. So like Nashville and Dover are up there for me, but like Dover in the contender race last year, that was my first time running like, up around the top 10 at that level. And I was sliding around because we had like a little bit looser set, and I was like, oh my God, this is so fun.
And just with how Dover is, like the corner exits just make your car want to slide. Oh my God, I love Dover. Thank you.
Yeah, but Dover. I think my favorite car on the sim is actually the Toyota GR86.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
So I've been a big GR86 fan ever since it came out, because like I have a thing for like the slower road cars, but I'm not really a fan of like the Mazda MX-5 because it slides around too much, and like sliding around can be fun, but I want something that I can slide around a little bit but still drive.
Yeah, the Mazda, if it's really easy to like you press the brakes too hard and around you go, like it's happened to me so many times.
Oh, excuse me, but
I love the little sports cars.
The GR86 is definitely my favorite because I'm able to drive it, and for lack of a better term, you can drive the absolute piss out of it,
right?
And it's so much fun. I also partake in the this is a mouthful of a name, the Toyota GR, or the Toyota Gazoo Racing North America Esports Cup.
That I'm sure that's trademarked.
Presented by what?
Yeah, presented by SRO or something like that. I don't know. This year is the second year of it where SRO's put it on, and I'm not necessarily like a winning driver in that series, but I have like top 10 speed every race. That's cool. But it's good being able to run with people that good. So we have a couple people that are really, really good in the slower cars. Like Michael Polasek has always been a TCR GR86 kind of guy. And then we also have Michael Yanni, who's been a Porsche Esports Super Cup contender. So we have a wide range of skills in that series. And it's good for me to be a primarily oval driver to have, top 10 speed in a road series put on by SRO, which is huge and gets a lot of eyes put on it.
Do you also see it as kind of like a break? Since, obviously you put a lot of time into the NASCAR and oval side. For me, I like hopping in the Mustang GT3 and just doing a sports car race. It's more chill to me. There's not going to be restarts and cautions. I'm just driving, watching prototypes go by me. It's just so chill. I love it. Do you see that as kind of more of a break for? But you're in a competitive series, so I guess it's a little bit different.
Yeah. So road racing in general is a break to me.
Yeah, that's more my question.
Road racing as a whole is more of a break to me because I don't really, while I enjoy running things like IMSA and stuff like that, I definitely prefer to run GR Cup or Production Car Challenge, which has the GR86 in it. And I love going out and running rain races if they're on that week. So it's definitely a break. I wouldn't necessarily call the SRO series a break because there's money on the line in it.
Yeah.
But
it's more of a side hustle.
It's kind of. But the normal official racing where I'm not really the type that likes to go beat up on lower I rating guys because there's no enjoyment in that.
Yeah.
But it's if I can just get a race where I pull away and all that, it's a nice relaxer to me because I enjoy the hum of the GR86 engine and iRacing, and it just drives really nice.
Yeah. That's the Mustang. Well, the Mustang doesn't drive that nice, but the GT3s in general are weird, but they're getting
well, you guys, it is Pride Month, and
it is.
That's why we have Nate here, is because it's Pride Month. And I had a question, Nate. You identify as a pansexual, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And what does representing the LGBTQ plus community mean to you? Because you are a professional iRacer, you're in the Coke series. What does it mean to you to represent the community as a driver there?
Yeah, so it means a lot to me to be able to represent, because to my knowledge, at least, there's never been any sort of pride representation in the Coke series before. At least I don't think there is. Yeah. So it's a big deal to me to be able to be the first to represent it. Albeit it's just like something small. It's a pride flag sticker on the back bumper.
Right. Something like, small that means a lot, though.
Exactly. Like, it means something to me to be able to do that. And
oh yeah,
you know, the tweet I made about it really popped off, got like over 200 likes, and like a few thousand people saw it. And I was like, oh, you know, it's like really cool, because a lot of people seem to care about it. So
yeah,
it's a big thing for me to be able to represent and showcase. And I think it was like June 1st or something like that. I don't know. It was over the weekend. Excuse me. I messaged my painter, Matt Kalish, who does all the Jim B. Fury sports cars and has worked with Jim for a long time. But I was like, hey, can I get a pride flag on my rear bumper? And he was like, yeah, you want like something specific or just a normal like pride flag? And I was like, just do the normal one. That's fine. And I think it was like 15 minutes later, he got it back to me. He was like, all right, here you go. And then, you know, that was that. So it was really cool to see all the engagement and support I got on Twitter for posting about it. Obviously, you know, you still had those like couple negative Nancy's that you had to hide in the comments.
You're always going to have that.
Like, yeah. So it definitely means a lot to me to be able to be like one of the first, if not the first, to represent pride in the Coke series and eNASCAR.
And I can say, we first found you on Twitter, I believe, almost a year ago now. Zack was starting to get into iRacing, and he was looking up iRacing people, and he found you, and you had a pride flag in your display name.
God.
And that made Zack
I had
very,
my little fangirl
happy.
moment. I was like, oh my God, there's a professional iRacing. And this goes into my question for you, because it's crazy that I had that reaction, but I really did, because I was new to iRacing. I was in a whole new world, it felt like, with the community. And sometimes I can't really tell if people in the iRacing community will like treat me a different way. Like, I remember in February, I had an Xfinity race at Daytona, and I just kept getting involved in all these different accidents. And I feel like people on voice chat were being so rude to me when from my perspective, I didn't do anything like egregious. I was just there getting collected. But I had the Gay Racing podcast on my car. Like, I can never tell if people, when they're nasty to me, if they're being nasty to me because I have rainbows on my car, or if they're just being nasty to me. Like, and with the iRacing community in general, like, you'll hop into races, like official races, and you hear all these southern older men on voice call, and just with how I've grown up and how society is and stereotypes, I go into like fight or flight mode almost. Right. Like, so my question for you, Nate, I guess, is, do you ever have feelings like with and since, you know, you're in the Coke series, you're at like a big part of it. Do you ever have feelings where, like, do you ever have those same feelings where you almost feel like, not that you're not welcome. You're treated differently, I guess. Like, how is it in the iRacing community? So,
like, I've always shown it on Twitter, like, for the past couple of years. I've had, like, you know, my pronouns and my sexuality, like, on my profile, and, you know, a pride flag in the Twitter handle. But, like, I've never really displayed it on iRacing. It's not that I didn't want to. It's just like I haven't, and especially over the past couple of years, like having sponsors and all that.
Right.
It's just been like, you know, I'm just going to run what the sponsor gives me. So I haven't really felt that per se. It definitely, like, I also feel like it depends on where you race,
right?
If that makes sense. Like, I feel like dirt oval and short track stuff are the worst offenders for that.
Yeah,
but
I can see that. I
feel like the majority of iRacers, at least those that I've come across, are in the I don't really care category, which is fine. Yeah. But it definitely, like, takes a few bad apples to ruin the bunch.
Oh yeah.
And, like, I've seen that with a lot of, you know, LGBTQ plus members on the sim, posting about it on social media and all that. And I feel like iRacing does do its due diligence with the protest system in getting rid of those that are, homophobic, transphobic, this and that and the other, as long as it gets protested and taken care of. So, but no, to really answer your question, I've never really felt like I've been treated differently. Like, obviously I've had jokes pointed my way and all that, but it's a little bit different when it's a joke coming from friends that you trust, as opposed to someone you don't know, where, you've been
then it gets kind of weird.
Those lobbies where like, oh, you got rainbows on your car, you were in a wreck, blah, 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 blah. I kind of viewed it like a Bubba Wallace-esque sort of thing.
We've talked about that like with real life drivers. Like anytime there's an up and coming driver who's not a white man, anytime they have anything happen to them, Twitter blows up. You see it.
Exactly. And that's definitely the worst part about it. And like, I've always been, I'm getting a little off topic, but like, I've been in Kentucky my entire life. First off, I'm thankful Andy Beshear is our governor. Really hope he makes a run at this presidency next time around. But, growing up in Southern Kentucky, it's always, and I knew I was pan back in like middle school or something like that. So like, I've known for a long time. And like, I've always known I was a little bit different, and like it kind of showed in the personality and all that. So like growing up in school, I definitely had like a few remarks thrown at me and all that, but like it definitely kind of was just something I was able to throw off, being from like, growing up in the Bible Belt, especially. That's a big thing that helped me like harden my skin and just kind of, I don't want to say get used to it, but like be able to just throw it off.
Yeah. I mean, you have to survive.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't really have a choice at that age, especially. So,
yeah.
And that's why we talked about it on our last episode, Alex. That's why pride's important, because simple as that.
Well, representation matters. And like I said before this question, like you were so excited seeing another iRacer with a pride flag in his name.
It was like like me 10 years ago, like seeing a pride flag anywhere in any relation to racing. Like, oh my gosh.
So that's why us doing what we do, Nate doing what you do, it's important. It's just really for our presence. Yeah.
And
right. Exactly.
I will say, I mean, you said like it depends on like the community in iRacing. Like I know the IndyCar community in iRacing, like they are very LGBT friendly for anyone that's curious, which I just love that. And because it's a weird mix of, you have gamers that play iRacing, and you have just young people that are just into sim racing that play iRacing. And then you have all these older people that are more traditional that also play iRacing, and we are all in the same damn fixed race. Like it's
right.
That voice chat is popping off. Oh my gosh, iRacing is so great. So we have one more question, not iRacing related. It is our guest question, and it is Marry, Kiss, Wreck. It's a little bit different than the version you're used to, perhaps. And we picked the last three, the winners of the last races of the three major series that we cover here on GRP. So we have our latest NASCAR winner, Ryan Blaney. We have Kyle Kirkwood from IndyCar, and we have Oscar Piastri from Formula One.
This is a difficult one.
You have to choose one to marry, one to kiss, one to wreck. I wonder what Alex would pick. This is really difficult for Alex.
I feel like I feel like the marry is an objective agreement across the board. It's Ryan Blaney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my, he would take such good care of me.
That is objectively the answer to that one. Now, the last two is where it gets kind of iffy. Like, I don't know. I was kind of thinking about it since you sent me the outline, Zach. I was thinking
all the other questions were easy, but this one you really have to think about.
I was like, man,
that's the hardest question of them all.
Save the hardest one for last.
I think I would put Piastri into the kiss slot and then Kirkwood into the wreck slot.
Oh,
I do the same thing. Yep.
I'm going to kiss Kyle Kirkwood because he's a boyfriend teammate. So,
true.
Oh God, that again.
So I will say, Kirkwood with the beard went up a few points.
It's kind of fine.
That's fair.
Yes.
But yeah, he's not
Good
giving
answers.
as much as what Blaney and Piastri are going to give.
Correct.
So
he's up against, like, if Max Verstappen was here instead of Oscar,
Girl.
bye.
Bye. Easy.
Anyway.
That would have been so easy. All right. Cool.
Well, thank you so much, Nate, for joining us. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Where can people find you on social media?
Yep. So literally everywhere. It's Nate_Stewart4, EWART for those that don't know. But yeah, it's that on every platform. You can find me on Twitch streaming occasionally. I stream every Coke race. And then
when is every Coke race for people that might be interested now?
So for the people that might be interested now, our schedule is typically every other Tuesday, but the last 3 weeks, we've had 3 straight races every week. So we had it was Charlotte, Nashville, and Kansas just back to back to back. And now we have an off week for the new build. And then coming back from the build, it's Iowa, Dover, not Nashville, Iowa, Dover, Chicago, back to back to back. And then we have 2 weeks off, and then Indianapolis, and then we get back into our every other week type of thing. But
you're hyping up Dover. I might tune in for Dover.
Dover's so fun. Well, just to race and drive. I don't know what the racing is going to look like.
I absolutely love Dover. And I mean, like, I don't know how I'll run. I don't know how I'm going to run the rest of the season. But I mean, first off, thank you to Jim Beaver Esports for giving me the opportunity to even race in the series. That's an accomplishment of it in and of its own. But yeah, Nate_Stewart4 on all platforms. I tweet fairly regularly. I like to interact with, you guys and the fellow racing community members. I make a post every Coke race day. I also run the Dead Zone Racing account. So you'll know when there's a race because I'll be posting about it multiple times throughout the day.
All right.
And then I stream, like I said. Make sure to go follow me on Twitch, Nate_Stewart4. Yeah, and then also make sure to go check out Misadventure Life. Yeah, whatever.
Wrong side of the shirt.
What side is the logo on?
Yeah, it's like the other way.
What is that? I don't know anything about the brand. What is that?
So Misadventure Life is like a lifestyle apparel brand that Jim Beaver owns.
Okay,
cool.
And
I love the paint scheme. It's so fun.
Yeah, I love the paint scheme too. That's the main sponsor for myself and Colin Keister, who drives the number 15 and is my, show teammate. We're also back-end teammates. But Jim Beaver launched it last year, I want to say. And then this year he came back into the Coke series with Jim Beaver Esports, and Misadventure is the primary sponsor on both cars. So make sure to go to misadventure-life.com. Use code NS10 at checkout. You'll get 10% off your order. And then I also get a cut of it. So, please spend money and get me money.
Do it. Do it, guys.
I'd be greatly appreciated.
Y'all go do it. I just bought a car. I ain't paying. I'm broke. I'm broke. So we have a kind comment from. I'm stealing your thunder, Alex. I'm reading the kind comment today.
Go for it.
I know you was ready. Ben on Blue Sky said, something I really appreciate about the Gay Racing Podcast is that it represents the idea that motorsports aren't just for white, conservative, heteronormative people. They're for everyone, and the voices that talk about it should be as diverse as the fan base. And was that? I assume that was a comment in regards to our Pride Month opening episode. So that's really cool to hear, and I'm glad. There's also people like Nate that are showing that diversity and representing us in iRacing and the professional series. So thank you so much, Nate, for joining us. Thank you so much to our Patreon subs. Our Patreon subs got to watch this episode a few days early, the night we recorded. So if you want to see more early guest episodes and bonus episodes, subscribe to our Patreon. And Alex, there's a separate tier if you want to submit questions and participate, right?
We now have a new tier. It's just $2 a month to get in there. You can submit questions like we did for this episode and rest of the month episodes, or you can do a $5 a month tier, which will be always have had, and you can get all the guest episodes early. So anyone on that tier get this episode early.
So the $2 is for like the Patreon mailbag and stuff if you just want to participate in that. So that'd be awesome. Consider giving us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, liking and subscribing here on YouTube if you enjoyed watching the video. Follow us at Gay Racing Pod on Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. You can follow me at Dreamy Zack Racing, Alex at New Gaiden, Nate. You can follow Nate Stewart at Nate__ Stewart 4. Thank you so much, Nate, for joining us today. Good luck with the rest of your Coke season. We will be watching very closely for you.
Yeah, thank you guys, Alex, Zach, for bringing me on. Whenever Zach reached out, I was like, "Oh my god, a podcast appearance!" Like I'm running,
fangirling over each other. Like
I'm running ass last in points, but like you still want me to come on? Yeah, awesome.
I don't see any other gay drivers running in that series.
But yeah, no, I'm really thankful for the opportunity and you guys letting me come on. I mean, I'm willing to come on whenever if you guys want me to. Like if you want to catch me at the end of the season and be like, "Oh, hey, you won 9 races in a row," or you finished last
hell yeah.
points.
You'll be
What
back
happened?
on if that happens. Well, yeah, when that happens, not if, when that happens. We'll see you then.
But yeah, if you guys want to catch me on at like the end of the season or whatever, just whenever, because I don't know what the future holds, but I'm always willing to come back on and show support. And you two are a cool bunch to hang out with. So
yeah. Well, we hope to see you stick around in the series too. So yeah,
I sure hope so. I don't want to run that qualifying stuff.
Well, yeah, I don't envy the stress. That's why I'm perfectly fine chilling and wrecking in my NIS races. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.